I'm not gonna go in that house if I'm by myself. I just have to drink the holy water. That's evil power.
We're gonna head out to Woodland, where my parents' old haunted house is. Hi darlings, it's literally been 3 years since I posted part 1 of my haunted house storytime series. So the fact that you guys are still to this day requesting the finale just blows my mind. Now, there have been a lot more subscribers since my family and I came forward with our story. So if you are new to this series, back in 2006, my family moved into a brand new house that ended up being extremely haunted by something that brought so much negativity and fear into our home. It got so bad that we had to call a local paranormal investigation team, and I actually shared screenshots of the email exchanges between the paranormal team and myself in that first video. So since this is a series, if you are new starting from this video, nothing will make sense. So in order to understand the true depth and severity of my family's reality living in the severely haunted house, you need to watch the other videos before this one. So I went ahead and I included the playlist link down below so that you're fully aware of the dots that we are going to be connecting in this video, where I reveal the final conclusion of what my family was dealing with in that home and what I learned about the land that the house sits on today. So in case you don't want to go through all of that, I made a quick less than 2-minute recap that you're about to see. Again, nothing compares to watching the whole series for every detail, but I understand that watching all of it would be a lot. So if you just want a quick recap, let's watch it right here. And when she looks up, the closet is sliding open on its own. She started seeing a boy with blood on his face in the hallway. They found that all the structures that my sister had built had been knocked over, and all of the Legos had been pieced apart and scattered all over the room.
We would come back, comforters on our bed would be like crumbled, and those little object toys would be on top of the bed. I really felt it like 6 times booking my legs. And I opened my eyes and nobody there, and I was scared. Both could hear that noise, and we looked at each other, and looking at the blinds, it was like a hand swinging into it or something.
Somebody that she couldn't see was now walking down the staircase.
I believe you that there's something in your house. I'm not comfortable to stay there in that house.
You remember when you woke up with scratches on your stomach and then there were like numbers?
Yeah, and letters.
My mom wrote this Catholic prayer on the wall of my sister's room, footsteps, with the feet being pressed into the fibers of the carpet. Walking as it hits where the piano is now being stepped on. We both saw a head and shoulders and a torso moving around in there. There's no denying that.
So I get in bed next to her, put the covers over my head, and I do not want to move.
Somebody's standing right next to me, but I can't see them. Do you know that feeling when you're walking through water? Well, that's what it felt like walking in there. Around 3 a.m., I would wake up because the room was suddenly being filled by light. Opening my eyes to see that the lamp was turned on while being all the way across the room.
So I'm standing at the door. When I look up, of course, there's this apparition blocking out the moonlight from the window. It's so dark and eerie, it was actually just as tall as the window. It crosses the window, blacks out that moonlight, so it goes right across the window. It's in the darkest part of the room, and I can still see how dark it was. That figure was darker than the dark in the room. And as it's right there in the corner of the room, it jets right at me.
I saw like this shadow figure walking around. I couldn't remember where it came from, but it was just there.
When I noticed that, I turned my eyes towards it when I saw he was already over there, and I could tell how tall he was. The back of my mind was like, maybe this is intruder. So I went in the house, and the girls were there in the family room. Angela, she was seeing this thing with red eyes in her closet.
Oh my gosh, that's exactly what it is.
That really scared me because that demons can get into your body and make you kill people. That's why I always run away right away from the house.
So maybe it's a good thing that you guys had to move out of that house then.
Because that's what terrified your dad, to move out of there. I just so angry about this whole thing. When I connected all of that to see the real picture of it, it makes me mad, really.
So there are some things that are going to be discussed that are very sensitive in nature, so I warn you in advance. What I shared before in previous videos is nothing compared to the full story of what my family went through since moving into that house. Basically, there was a lot that I chose not to talk about because it was too dark, and I was scared to acknowledge that these things actually happened the way it did, and sharing everything would not be good for my family. We would basically be opening ourselves up to possible humiliation. What was there in that house was real. and unless you experience it, you will just never know how much. What you're going to see in this finale is in-person interviews with my mom, my aunt who was scared of the house that she moved out, also an in-person interview with someone who lives in my old neighborhood who recognized my house from the videos and contacted me. So I met up with her in person to hear what stories she has about her house, which oddly enough sits on the same street just a few houses down from my parents' house. In this video, you will also see that I even flew all the way to Woodland, knocked on the door of my parents' old house, and spoke with the new owners of the haunted house to see if there's any activity still going on there. Because if there is, I would be willing to help them. So get comfortable. There's going to be a lot happening in this finale. So darlings, let's go ahead and pick up right where we left off. She doesn't want me to show her. Hello.
Hello.
This is my little sister, Alexandria Jane.
Whew. Before moving into the house, everything was great. My parents were just living the American dream. My dad was a biomedical engineer and provided a very good living for my family. My mom was a stay-at-home mother caring for my two younger sisters, Alex and Ange. Everyone, for the most part, was happy, healthy, going on vacations, creating happy memories for my sisters. They were able to buy whatever they wanted. They treated us to dinners all the time. I mean, it was great. During this time, Lex and I moved in with Chris and his parents, and my parents decided to sell their old house in Sassoon, which is the house that I grew up in, because they wanted to move into a new place that was bigger and somewhere they can settle down forever. At this time, everything was just great. Until they moved into their brand new home in Woodland, California, in a community called Wild Wings. Now, when I say new, I mean there were no housing developments around this plot of land ever. It was just a field with nothing surrounding you but open fields of farmland. Outside of the Wild Wings, you had to drive quite a distance to reach any sign of civilization, such as grocery stores and restaurants. So it didn't take long for my family to start noticing some odd activity that started happening around the house. You all hopefully know what the extent of that is by now. So I saw my mom, dad, and siblings go from thriving in every possible way to becoming people that I didn't even recognize. This is where I'm going to start to share everything that is going to be extremely sensitive to talk about. So this is your last chance to click out of the video. I might choose to edit this out later, but for now, I'm just gonna say it all. This is gonna be hard. So my mom and dad went from being a respectful, loving, normal couple to people who didn't know how to control their emotions. They started to become very aggressive with each other and also oddly aggressive to everyone else around them too. It didn't matter where they were or who was around. This pretty much went on a daily basis. And this is what began to turn the life of my perfect family's home into a toxic, overall negative environment. I'm gonna have to be pretty cryptic and vague of a majority of the bad stuff that was going on with my parents out of respect to my family. But trust me when I say that it was not good. Everyone who knew my parents saw how bad it got. My family always pulled me aside or they called me to see what the heck is going on with them, and I did not know. Like, it was just not a good time in their lives. When I tried to intervene during their fights, nothing they said made any sense at all. I mean, the accusations they had towards each other, towards me, towards my aunts, it was almost like fighting was something they were programmed to do, because even with all of how bad it was getting, they did not want to split up. I tried to remove my poor sisters, but I was threatened that I would get arrested for kidnapping. And there's more that I can say, but I'm going to leave that to your imagination. I've already shared so much in my past YouTube videos that I would regret ever mentioning these particular events on such a large platform, but I'm going to give you a very vague idea of what was happening to them on a personal level. Other bad things started happening. Really bad car accidents, falling asleep on the road, job loss, and more that I can't say. This was not normal for my family. It seemed like all sense of reality, all rational thinking, and all awareness of their behavior was sucked out of them. At this time, we did not think this had anything to do with the house. As a matter of fact, I didn't start to think that there was a connection until I started researching what could have been in my parents' house during the research part of this series. At the end of the series, you will see how everything has a dark connection that you did not expect. Remember when I said the floor piano was being stepped on and played right in front of me, and I could actually hear the footsteps get closer and closer as this thing approached the floor piano, and I ran out of there? Well, there were times when those kitty books with the buttons that make some sort of sound were being pressed on and played right in front of me with nothing touching it. But one of the stories you haven't yet heard was one from my Auntie Carol, who you will meet later in this video. We were visiting my parents for Thanksgiving, and as all of us were sitting down and enjoying each other's company at the dinner table, there was a knock on the door, even though everyone that was invited was already there. So we weren't expecting anyone at this time. So my Auntie Carol, who was just coming out of the downstairs bathroom, went to open the door since she would be walking right past it on her way back to the dining table. So Auntie Carol looks through the peephole and then opens the door, looks around, closes the door, then heads back to the bathroom to get her makeup bag that she left in there, and comes back to the dinner table looking frightened. She is not the type of person to ever really show that she is scared, being this tough Filipino lady, but you could tell she did not have her usual happy face on and that something was wrong. She just looked blank, expressionless. I pick up on this and I say, "Auntie, are you okay?" And she says, "Yeah, I'm okay," brushing it off, but she remained quiet, and I don't think she wanted to ruin the night or say it in front of everyone. So we went about our night, and it wasn't until a few months later she told me what happened. She said she went to the bathroom to touch up her makeup for the family pictures we were planning on taking, and after she walked out of the bathroom and checked the door, she decided to go back to the bathroom so that she can grab her makeup bag that she left in there so that she doesn't accidentally leave it at my parents' house. But once she returned back to the bathroom, she turned the light on and saw that everything in the bathroom was turned upside down. Totally messed up. The towels that were hung on the towel rack, which were supposed to be decorative towels that usually hung with this nicely decorative rope, were pulled apart and on the floor and in the sink, and the shower curtain was just drawn open. And she said that when she left the bathroom, the curtains weren't open. So it took a lot of effort to be able to untie that rope and pull the towels down like that. So my aunt just put everything back to the way it was and let it go. According to all the eyewitness accounts from my family members, it looks like what we were seeing is something called a shadow person. There are several types of shadow people. Some can be seen wearing hats, some can be in cloaks, and some can be seen with red glowing eyes. Majority of the time, people report these shadow figures at the corner of their eye, dashing quickly away when spotted, only to be seen as they are experiencing an episode of sleep paralysis. What's unique about what we were seeing was that it was seen right in front of our field of vision. It remained in its place or slowly walked around until it made it into the next room, and happened only when we were fully awake. So I had some research to do. What I discovered makes sense and is the reason why I think that the private things that my family went through had somewhat of a connection. This thing was witnessed to have red eyes. Upon my research, that physical characteristic is something that is negative. There are religious groups that view shadow entities as demonic in nature. The shadows that themselves are not thought to be evil, but rather watchers for potential souls to be claimed. This way of thinking assumes that when one is seen, something evil is present. Cleansings must be done to avert any negativity that is trying to permeate the person of the home where the shadow is seen, and it only leaves once a ritual is performed or when it gets what it wants. Let me put it this way. The shadow people that presented itself was something that we all felt was not good. It cast an emotion of dread into our environment. Whether you're showering, getting a glass of water, or watching TV, you always felt eyes on you. Now, of course, you guys remember when my sister said that she saw a man with blood on his face in the hallway, as well as my son saying that he saw a dirty man standing at the top of the stairs. Is what my 3-year-old Lex described the same as what my sister Ange saw, but he couldn't articulate or describe that it was a bloody face and not a dirty face, was this apparition, which was completely different looking than the shadow person, just has the ability to morph into different appearances, or was the human who was bleeding transforming into this dark shadow figure based on his personal dark energy who had dark emotions with the way he passed? If you guys didn't catch this before, I'll recap. The Wild Wings community, which began construction in 2004, was built literally right next door to a private airport called Watts Airport. As you can see from these images, you can literally see that the landing strip is just a few feet away from the first row of houses. Here is where my parents' house is located. If you look back at the public records on the Watts Airport, since it opened in the early 1900s, there have been over 1,000 accidents at the airport. Not everyone was fatal, not everyone was serious, but one of the most recent incidents being in 1990 when a private two-person plane missed the landing strip, crashing into the ground. Both passengers died in that crash. Could the gentleman that was bleeding in his head that my sister saw be one of those pilots? We, of course, have no idea, but it's something to consider. One theory is based upon a former sheriff of that county where my parents' house was. The former sheriff emailed me and told me that the Wild Wings community is very close to an Indian burial ground. So I went to the local Woodland library, dug up some old historical documents and books on the history of the city.
Do you guys have like old newspapers, local newspapers here?
Go to the front. They can get some for you.
Okay, thank you. So they just pulled a bunch of books for me about the history of Woodland. Trying to see what we can find.
It turns out that the Wild Wings land was inhabited by the Patwin Native American tribe. The arrival of European explorers forever altered the course of Native Americans in Woodland. Many Patwin people were forced to become slaves, while Europeans brought abuse and diseases such as malaria, smallpox, and influenza, which happened to kill the majority of the remaining Patwin. By the 1800s, the tribes were forcibly removed from their homes and hunting lands by Europeans due to their greed over the gold in the land. This greed over gold wiped out the remaining native people due to the legalization of the genocide. If you don't know what a genocide is, it is the deliberate killing of a large group of people, especially those of a particular ethnic group or nation. In this case, the Native Americans of Woodland. During this time, the native population declined dramatically, eventually rendered the Patwin tribe nearly extinct. Could this be sacred Native American land? Yes. In reality, all of America belonged to the Native Americans, and I personally believe it should still belong to them. But because of everything the local tribe endured with the murders, could there be a curse on the land where Wild Wings community resides, or even hold negative energy that was stored in that area due to all the violence and evil that was done? Could this community rest near or even on Native American burial grounds? It's actually been on the news that there had been several remains of the Patwin tribe accidentally discovered quite a few times near and around Woodland. Could there have been a discovery of remains within the Wild Wings community during construction? The law states that if there had been any kind of human bones discovered on a construction site, the company would have to report it to the local authorities and close down the job site for months while under investigation, which would cause the builders to lose a lot of time and money. Now, is it going too far to insinuate that there may have been a possibility that the builders of Wild Wings possibly came across burial grounds when constructing my parents' neighborhood? Well, this kind of hiding Indian burial grounds has actually been done before, and it happened just a few miles from my parents' neighborhood, where someone from a housing development company came forward and admitted that their boss told them to hide the remains of Native Americans that were buried on a now completely finished brand new neighborhood. Let's take a look.
A sacred burial site is at the center of a new lawsuit filed by the Yolo County DA. The DA is accusing a housing developer of hiding the discovery of Native American remains and building on top of it.
These homes went up on a burial site that was never properly removed.
It is a new neighborhood built on a Native American burial site. The construction crew knew about the burial site earlier and didn't follow state law handling the sensitive site properly. The defendants instructed their subcontractor not to contact police and to hide that expletive.
With the immense amount of people that were killed, it wouldn't surprise me if the developers of Wild Wings did come across something. It's like Philip Freneau said in his poem, The Indian Burial Ground. Be wary of the native burial ground, for life still moves there. What's interesting is that there had been several reported hauntings not only in other homes in the Wild Wings community, but also in the Woodland Opera House, local businesses.
The fuck? She's gotta do it. The fuck is going on up here, man? All these fucking noises. The fuck?
And there is also a very creepy abandoned house called the Madison House that exists just a few feet across the street from the Wild Wings entrance, where someone went inside and captured this video.
Here I am back at the old farmhouse in Woodland. I'm going to go inside. We're going to see exactly what's going on inside this house. I'll go through every room. Here's the staircase, the hallway, but you can tell it's an old house. Here's another room. I guess these were all bedrooms at one time. Let's go upstairs. I don't hear any of the footsteps this time, but let's see. 3 bedrooms up here. This is scarier than shit. Here's one room. Another room right here. I don't know if I can step out here or not, see if it's safe or not, but there's my truck. All right, got one more room. Check this last room out here. So here's the last room. Yeah, you can tell it's old, it's all beat up. All right, well, that's it. I'm going to go ahead and... Oh, goddamn! Oh, shit! Holy crap! Wow! Oh! Goddamn door just shut! Oh, shit!
These are the same door slams that Lex and other members of my family heard when no one else was around, and that home has quite a bit of history of hauntings happening there. The owners of the property have witnessed paranormal activity, having seen a male and female spirit there. The home is now torn down, and the wood from the home was reclaimed and used for other buildings, but prior to the demolition, tools and chainsaws would be moved from one place to another. As you can see in this actual newspaper article, the property owner believed that the spirits did not want the house taken down. I think it's pretty safe to say that the city of Woodland could be haunted grounds. The final theory that I have is that an object in my parents' house has something attached to it. If you've seen the movie Annabelle, that is a true story, where an evil creature was possessing the doll, pretending to be a little girl attached to it. Spirits and evil entities have been known to attach themselves to ordinary objects such as dolls, mirrors, masks, and jewelry over the years. Ghost Adventures Zach Baggins and Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were the first paranormal investigators in the world, even have entire museums where they store away possessed and cursed objects so that they are safely away from society. Oddly enough, my mom has always decorated our homes in a very Victorian style. Our living room and dining room was always very 1800s. So my mom has collected several antiques which are displayed around the house that date back to the early 1700s. That's right. Some items in my parents' house are over 300 years old. She has a china cabinet filled with these knickknacks that have lived hundreds of years before us, knowing absolutely nothing about the history of it, and we even still have a piano sitting in her living room that is from 1908. That's right. Growing up, I had to learn to play piano off of a very creepy 100-year-old antique piano. My mom is so attached to these items, and I don't get it. So I have a friend named Lilia who is actually a gifted psychic medium, meaning she has the ability to connect and communicate with the dead and see things that others can't. The stories that I could tell you about her are just crazy. So I decided after the last video I made in this series to see if there is anything that Lilia can tell me about my parents' house. So she tells me, without having ever seen my parents' house at all, that she's seeing something, a keepsake, which is a little statue or ornament in a cabinet with glass in my mom's home, and that she wants me to bring it to her the next time we see each other so that she can do a reading on it. What's crazy is that my mom actually keeps the majority of her 1700s antiques in a glass china cabinet, just like Lilia described. So I drive up north to my mom's current house and I send her this video from the inside of my mom's china cabinet. Lilia then tells me that she sees a vision of something that went on many years ago with those objects, and that the previous owner has an attachment to one of these dishes in there and is searching for forgiveness and attention. And although she asked me to bring it with her before, now that she had seen it outside of her vision, she now recommends that I leave it there, because if I bring it with me, I could be taking something home. There are natural elements that come from the earth that have been said to heighten paranormal activity in certain locations. Paranormal professionals believe that elements such as limestone and granite capture emotional energy from a traumatic event and absorb energies of spirits, storing horrific and terrifying moments in time. So much so that it causes the effect called the stone tape theory. Buildings that were built over limestone deposits, such as the Stanley Hotel, is known to have extreme paranormal experiences. Yes, that is the actual hotel from the Shining movie.
What kind of rock is this?
Quartz and limestone.
Now, quartz and limestone are said to be very good conductors of energy.
You find a location that has a high level of haunting activity, you're going to find either limestone
flowing
or
water,
quartz somewhere in the area.
Some natural geomagnetic conductor.
So the United States Geological Survey has a map indicating the locations and presence of the paranormal activity inducing limestone sediments. Any areas that are pink is where limestone sediments are naturally present on the land. Here's a map of the surrounding area and where the Wild Wings community sits. Nowhere in the surrounding area contains limestone, but the cluster in this contained area just so happens to be where my parents' home sits atop. Back in school, science has always taught us that water is a conductor of energy. An article on USA Today reads, like the living, ghosts are attracted to water. Water is a great conductor of energy, so if water runs under the house, it's probably a very paranormally active house. What's interesting is that the Wild Wings community operates the only county-run wastewater treatment plant. There are also wells under the streets, free-flowing wastewater pipes, water draining from the surrounding ponds in the neighborhood, as well as the neighborhood being right along the bankside of Cache Creek. My parents even had a pond right in their backyard that was being filtered around the clock right under their home. This continued free flow of water in the area allows entities to continuously use this conductor as a way to enhance the amount of energy it can obtain. So paranormal beings and spirits can draw their energy from many sources such as electrical storms, geomagnetic fields, power lines, and underground flowing water sources. Take a look at what Dr. Barry Taff and Zach Baggins from Ghost Adventures has to say.
Are there any explainable reasons why there is such a strong geomagnetic force there? Is there a fault line there?
The part of Benedict Canyon is actually acknowledged by the U.S. Geological Survey as a geomagnetic anomaly site. The geomagnetic field at that particular location is anywhere from 5 to 60 times normal. USGS nor anyone else doesn't know why that these forces are prevalent there. From what I've read and heard, that area is considered a sacred site by ancient Native Americans.
We've heard that as well.
It wouldn't surprise me if this unique geomagnetic and electromagnetic environment is one that is captive to the energies and information that came before.
Is the energy of that massacre stored there because of the energy?
In a form we cannot yet comprehend, perhaps.
Here's the most recent map of the geomagnetic anomalies of Woodland, and here's where my parents' neighborhood is. Areas in the lighter pink indicates the highest level of geomagnetic anomaly on a scale. The normal range of geomagnetic fields are between 25,000 and 65,000 nanoteslas. My parents' neighborhood stands at 400,000. Even NASA believes that these geomagnetic locations are possibly portals that open and close several times per day.
The portal, an extraordinary opening in space or time that connects travelers to distant realms. A good portal is a shortcut, a door into the unknown, and a NASA-funded researcher has figured out how to find them.
At this point in my research, as you can imagine, I just kind of have to laugh, right?
I'm driving in. I'm pulling up on the house right now. The house is right here.
I actually used to live here. Okay, it's gonna sound really, really weird.
I just had to drink the holy water. That's evil power. This must be the piano.
Well, why do you keep that there?
Like I said, I live how many places. I never experienced things like that. I know I should not believe it, but when you've heard something and you know it's somebody is there or something going on up there, you get scared sometimes.
But there's one more thing that I haven't told you guys. And